Morning, good morning. Good morning,
Hello.
everyone. And welcome back to our webinar series, How Not to Drive Your Business to Zero, but actually set yourself up to thrive in the aftermath. Once again, our awesome host, Danielle Watson, Director at Vertic IT Services, and today's guest, Zoie Burgess, Digital Marketing Advisor. Just a few important notes very quickly. A recorded version of this webinar will be available on our social media. Should you have any questions, please post them in the chat. All questions will be attended to at the end of the interview, and then you can also get a list of our upcoming interviews and the dates on our registration page and our socials. So yeah, let's hand over to Daniel.
Great stuff. Thank you, Bianca. I'll make you the host now so you can control things in the background for me. So, hey, Zoe, thanks for coming out to talk with us today. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, what you're doing?
Sure thing. It's my pleasure to be here today. The commute was very easy, so that was very helpful, thank you. A little bit about me. I've spent 17 years as an in-house marketing manager for various organisations. I've worked for a publicly listed organisation based out of Scotland, but looking after their Australia Pacific marketing function. And I've also worked in-house for a couple of New Zealand-based businesses with national operations. But I guess the one thing that's kind of seems to be my thing is undergoing digital transformation of sales and marketing functions, and through that delivering an alignment between the marketing effort and the sales return on that effort to really deliver strong return on investment results.
Great stuff. So I think that pretty much establishes you as somebody who clearly knows their shit. Now,
we shall see.
So, and also you've been around long enough to see trends in marketing, what works, what doesn't work over time, which I think is important for this conversation. Because right now we're in the middle of a situation where, well, actually, we're not even sure if we're in the middle of it. We might be at the start of something that's going to fundamentally change the way we operate. And it's less likely going to be more in-person, face-to-face sales and marketing activity, which drives businesses forward. So from a marketing perspective, what's the biggest mistake a business owner could make or possibly is already making with respect to their marketing right now?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and I think probably one of the biggest mistakes, certainly in what I've come across over the past couple of weeks, and in fact I'd say even across my experience in the industry, is that marketing gets very, very excitably involved in the lead generation and the sourcing of new customers. That is predominantly what people associate marketing with, is the job of finding new customers. But where I think there is extra value is in making sure that your marketing is also undertaking two other jobs. The first one is ring fencing your existing customer network, making sure that your communications and digital touch points and helpful sources of information are absolutely surrounding your existing customer base, so that people are aware, so that your customers are aware of the value that you're delivering them, and so that you don't become a discretionary spend. That's one area. The other job that marketing needs to do is to turn those existing clients into advocates for your business, because that not only helps them, helps you, but it helps to bring in new clients when they're undertaking that search phase and looking for assistance. So yeah, I think the number one thing that businesses might not be doing right now is thinking, well, nobody's looking for my products and services, or I don't have the cash flow at the moment to support push messaging. I disagree. I think that you can leverage your existing marketing capabilities to really support your existing client base and help with retaining them, so that you're leveraged into whatever the future looks like in a really capable way.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's only so many ways to grow a business, right? I think there's three. Add new clients, increase the number of billable events, or increase your pricing, right? So if you don't retain your clients, then you're forced to gather more clients in a given time frame than before, right? Which further increases your need for marketing, right? So
yeah, sure. And I think it's a really well-known statistic. I say that, and then I think there's people that argue on it, but it's something like 5 to 7 times more expensive to secure a new client as it is to keep an existing one. So if you've gone to all the effort and expend energy of securing a client, surely it makes sense to invest a touch more in ensuring that they stick around.
Yeah, and it's well worth knowing what knowing your numbers as to what it costs you to acquire a client, right? Because you need to understand that if I spend $5 on marketing and I gain a lead and I get enough of them and I acquire a client, that the total cost for acquiring that client is, I don't know, $100, all right? So if it's $100, but the lifetime value of a client is $400, it's, well, that ratio is really good. That means if you chuck in, a dollar, you're going to get a 8 times, 12 times, whatever times return. It's like, as long as you've got the capital to inject into it, then, how many dollars are you going to be willing to fork over?
Yeah, for sure. I think, when you're at the phase of thinking about your outreach and perhaps your business is in a position where securing new customers, where you have no choice or it just makes natural sense to move your marketing towards that style model. What I find the easiest way to establish how much or how much things cost or how much you should invest is to work backwards. So if you know that if one client is worth X dollars and you know that you need to secure 3 clients in the month, well then how many inquiries do you need to make sure that you're getting to that level of conversion into 3 clients? So it might take you 10 inquiries to get 3 conversions. Okay, good. So once you've got your 10 inquiries, well then how many website visits or phone calls or meetings do you need to have in order to get those 3 inquiries, right? Well, then how much is it then going to cost to have all that extra traffic or to provide the networking opportunities or to deliver some really engaging content in order to get that equation working? And it's a pretty simple formula, but you're right, once you can figure out your cost of acquisition and of course the return on that cost, it is a pretty no-nonsense formula for what you should invest.
Yeah, that's right. When it comes to like a marketing strategy, and like right now, people are sitting around, they got some time, right? The advice we've had from previous interviews has been, broadly speaking, start making your plans now for various scenarios. What from your perspective as a marketeer, what should people be doing right now?
Yeah, sure. I don't think there's any business who hasn't been in some way affected by this lockdown. So I disagree with, or I would challenge anyone who says that their marketing strategy will continue on as it was, that in fact that's not the case. And even if you are an essential service or if you have found an increase in your services, certainly the people that you're dealing with, their circumstances will have changed, which means that you should change along with them. So yep, I agree with all of the other speakers that now is the time to plan. But I also don't think that it's, I also think the way to go about your planning isn't to get too bogged down in the detail of the plan. What it really needs to include is some very clear, very concise and measurable objectives, which can help you understand what the pathway, what the steps are to delivering on that plan. So literally, how many new clients do I need per month and how am I going to get there? How many existing customers do I need to contact or do I need referrals from and how am I going to get there? And having that kind of granular detail, even in something as basic as an Excel spreadsheet, just keeps you really accountable. But it also means that when you reach out to partners to support your business objectives, either with your marketing or any other type of service, you can give them a really clear indication of what success looks like.
Yeah.
Which is super helpful for anybody who's trying to support your business strategy to understand, well, what are we being measured against here? What do we need to help to deliver to make sure that your plan is a success, and what are the quantifiable steps and measures that are in place? So yeah, I would be doing a lot of planning, but not in a heavily detailed way, just in a way that's very easy and trackable and measurable for the next 6 to 12 months.
So yes, 6 to 12 months, but even now there are people who still have money to spend. They just might be a bit uncertain about it.
Yeah.
And rather than straight out just sitting on your hands and waiting, is it worth trying to get some kind of activity happening in the marketplace where you're looking for people who might want your services, who are still essential services?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're, and I think, some of the tools that are available to our businesses now make it so easy and sensible. And what I'm talking about really is demand-driven advertising. So several of the platforms that we use now, including Google Search and YouTube, offer a demand-driven pay package whereby your advertisements are served up with relevant, when people search with relevant search terms or in relevant locations, and your ad is shown, which is what we call an impression. Now, you don't pay for that impression unless somebody actually clicks on it. So, and this time, you effectively have some branding and some association that your products and services can help people with what they're trying to solve, without necessarily paying for it if they don't follow through and click on your ad. Similarly with YouTube advertising, if you have video or if you're previously advertising on TV, YouTube have not only a fantastic targeting tool to really narrow down your audience characteristics and profile, but similarly, you only pay for your ad to play through if it reaches a certain number of seconds. So it means that you get that initial branding, but you don't necessarily have to pay for it unless somebody is engaged with your ad and watches it all the way through. Now then, of course, it raises the question, well, do I actually want people to watch my ad all the way through? Of course you do. Yeah. You're happy to pay for it. And that's when we get into more specifics about, the creative process that's involved in terms of engaging people. But look, I think really taking advantage of some of the mechanisms to keep your brand alive, keep in front of people who are searching for them without necessarily having the same level of cost is absolutely a worthwhile activity in this downtime.
Awesome. If somebody wanted to get into generating content for either LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, what have you got any kind of suggestions on how they might get started with that?
Yeah, I do. So I think I'm sure Daniel and many of the people on this call were the recipient of many hundreds of emails from businesses who had not been in touch with their databases, perhaps in some cases for many years, but took it upon themselves to communicate with everyone about what they were doing with this lockdown, which is, good. But I think with all content, with all communications, the primary goal of your content should be to help. So it shouldn't be to sell. It shouldn't be to provide information about services that you offer. It should be to help people understand how you are trying to solve their problem.
Yeah.
So if you can keep that as your objective, regardless of whether it's an image, a video, a text post, or an email communication, then I think you manage to achieve the right balance and hopefully a much better engagement with your audiences than if you come at it from.
Yeah, no, I'm fully on board with educational direct response marketing. That's you cut through a lot of the noise when you're adding value to people, and it builds trust with them and sets you up as an authority for them to talk with.
I think it makes it easier for people to share your content as well. There's not depending on the brand and on the service, but there's not a huge desire for people when they're using social media platforms in their personal time to make referrals to their personal networks for businesses, unless they've got a really compelling reason. So if your content is focused on helping people or educating them, you've got a much better chance of being referred within people's personal networks on those social platforms.
Yeah, because so once you've retained a client, you've got to come right round and you've got an enormous resource there to get referrals for their network, right? And I mean, one of the big things I did for Vertec is I just made it part of the sales process, is that once we've completed a project or onboarded a client, then we look to get a proper testimonial, including their photo and everything, and that, so that we can post it onto our website, and we can use it when we're communicating with any prospects, and also try and get a Google review. My phone just perked up because I mentioned the word Google. Quiet. They're always listening.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I know that even when we weren't doing Google ads, having Google reviews on our Google My Business page led to new business. I got leads straight from that. So it's never just one thing to grow your business.
No,
it's all okay. It's all about feeding the funnel at the top and bringing it down.
Look, I agree with you. I think there's a whole lot of things that we could be doing, and I do think we could tie ourselves up in knots a wee bit, thinking, well, what do I do first? Where do I start? What's going to give me the best value? And I think that's where that goes back to having that plan in place and clearly mapping out, if I do this, if I want to get here, what are the key steps that I need to undertake, and when do I need to undertake them by in order to get me there, and then having the measures in place. To go back to your point about reviews are a fantastic proof of concept for people who are searching. I don't guarantee. I would strongly suggest that a business who offers very similar products and services to another business, and one had 20 people saying that they had a good experience with the one business and the other one didn't, the chances of them securing new customers will be vastly higher. It's just that we trust in other people's verbatim feedback and experience more than we will trust the imagery or the advertising, to be fair.
That's right. That's social proof that, and before any other person does business with you, the only thing they will probably know about your business is your marketing or what reviews are out there about you or what their friend has said. And anytime you can get a referral where somebody says, hey, deal with Zoe, she knows her shit, then you've already kind of jumped over several barriers, and probably the greatest one being trust, because if they trust that person, they're now passing that trust on to you, which is it's a wonderful thing, and it's great. And if you can't convert somebody who is a referral into a client, then you should probably just walk away because something's wrong.
It's a great thing for staff as well. You know, for businesses that have a range of staff, if you get a personal mention in a Google review for your team member, that is a huge level of kudos for what you do and the value that you provide. And that goes into a whole lot of other, you know, marketing where, you know, a lot of marketing jumps over staff and goes direct to the consumer, but actually employees are another, of course, because they're customer facing, or perhaps not right now, but the idea is that they're customer facing, and they should be your biggest advocate for the business, and be able to you know, equally deliver the message that your marketing is delivering. So yeah, I think utilising reviews and testimonials as part of your marketing strategy is absolutely critical to differentiation.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a few different platforms out there right now. Let's assume that somebody is either you know, they're severely impacted by they can't trade right now, but they want to be prepped so that when the boot comes off the neck, we get down to level 3 or level 2, that they can launch themselves out of the gate and try and make up some of the steered ground, right? What's the best bang for buck platform they can jump into? Easy question.
I feel like you're looking for a real clear-cut answer from me here, and I'm going to try and give you one. But I'm afraid to say that, like most things, it does depend a lot on what your objective is. And I'm sorry to keep banging on about it, but it's very important to understand what we are trying to achieve before we pick a tactical strategy to try and execute and deliver on that objective. So I guess what I'm referring to here is two types of marketing. We've got push marketing, which pushes our messages out and drives awareness of how we're trying to help, what we're trying to do, why people might gain some sort of benefit from engaging with us as a business. And then we've got the pull marketing, which is focused around pulling people who are already searching, have already shown intent, have already got are in that consideration phase of the process, and pulling them in to our messaging and into our website and into our sales funnel effectively, with targeted and well-positioned media. So if your business is new, if you're launching a new product, if you're not confident that people are aware of what you're doing, then I would suggest that probably investing in social media, because of all the eyeballs that are on it at the moment and using it, is a great platform. There's some great cost per click case studies coming in. Facebook have made $100 of ad spend free to businesses. You just need to claim it to use across this time to give it a go. Excellent targeting. So yeah, if you're trying to launch your product, or if you're trying to raise awareness of what you do, I would suggest that probably social media or perhaps YouTube is a really great option for you. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, I've got a couple of things I've got to remember. So, so there's a freebie deal with Facebook, which is nice to know. I didn't know about that. Has the cost per click fees come down in this period, or are they gone up?
Well, it depends on the business. I'm sorry. I know I'm not giving you
okay.
If you've got a highly competitive market, if there's really strong demand for what you're doing, then in some cases it's gone up because there's more competition, and then others are experiencing much lower cost per click.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing it now, it doesn't matter, because you won't notice the difference anyway, right? So, I mean, I guess part of this is that you should have a reasonable idea of what the size of your target market is, right? Because you can't spend $1,000 to market to 3 people, you know, because if your market is very small, then what percentage of that market is actually ready to buy right now, right? Because whenever you put anything out there, I mean, like when I'm looking for new clients, it's like, if their current IT guy is doing okay, he's fine, he's made a few cock-ups, but nothing too major, he's not great, he's not bad, then they're not going to move. They're not going to jump across to us, regardless of the amazing testimonials we'll have, because they're just not ready to buy. However, that same client in 6 months' time might, having seen several of our messages, might then click on something, because right at that moment they've been ransomwared and they've just realized that, oh, maybe we do need to address this problem, you know, and that's when we can make gains. But so if somebody was looking to engage with an outfit like yourselves, right, what would you like them to bring to the table already?
Yep. We know already how strongly I feel about having some objectives. Having an idea of what your business goal is, and keeping a reasonably open mind about the marketing tactics that you take is probably a helpful start. Certainly it would very much help to have a reasonably clear idea of who your target audience is. So I kind of liken it to shooting a basketball. If you generally throw the ball up in the air, there's a reasonably slim chance that it will actually get through the hoop. But if we apply some skill, if we apply some knowledge, if we apply some practice and some learnings, we can actually aim the ball at the hoop and hope that several times it actually goes in the net. So I think having a really good idea of who your ideal customer is, and I mean not just their business title, I mean their gender, their age, their likes, their interests, whether they have children, what stage of life they're in. Those are the sorts of demographics that social media and Google as well are picking up on. And so the more specific you can be, the more helpful and narrower the targeting you can apply to campaigns.
Because it can get very detailed, like right down into the geography and all sorts of cross-referencing. It's amazing, and the tighter you get it, then the more effective your dollar spend is going to be, right?
Absolutely. And I think one last thing, and a lot of businesses don't have it, and that's okay, but a really good idea of what your business conversion rate, so the number of clients that you actually turn into clients versus the number of inquiries that you get, is extremely helpful. Because as we already talked about, working that backwards cycle from figuring out what size of audience do we need to actually attract the right number is helpful. And then of course those audience characteristics also help us think, well, what is the right messaging? What's the right copy that's going to compel someone to click on this ad and to really discover more about how this business could help?
I know for us, we've put a lot of effort into our sales process as well as we bring in the raw leads, but you still actually have to get them across the line, right? So qualify them as an actual prospect versus somebody that you perhaps don't want to do business with. And I found that the more specific we are with this, then the better is the outcomes for everybody involved. There's no point taking on client. Every time I've taken on a client out of perceived desperation, I've regretted it. All right. And there's been never a happier moment amongst the team when I've fired those kind of clients. So, and I guess now is like a really bad time for that, because people will be thinking, anybody that walks, like if they can breathe and they've got a heartbeat, then I'll want them as a client. No, there are plenty of people out there you will regret. So they're having a sales process brings them on after that is really important as well. You can't neglect that, because it doesn't matter if you're a marketer says, great, we've set up a funnel where we're feeding you 20 leads per week. And then, you know, going back to them and saying, I haven't got one client out of these ones. Well, you know, what's your sales process like? You know, you're qualifying them up. You attracting the wrong clicks?
Absolutely, yeah, and it becomes clear as day once you have that funnel organized. So yeah, are you getting enough traffic to your website? Well, once they get to your website, they're not spending much time there. So how can we improve some of the quality of information and the conversion points? And the leads aren't coming through. Okay, well then how can we support that strategy? If the leads aren't high quality, well, have we got the right messaging in the ads in the first place, or are we promising something here and then not delivering it over here? So once you have that funnel, it's very easy to spot the bottlenecks, and it's really good to drive improvement, continuous improvement of and optimization of those different areas. And then once it's humming, it's a relief, and then businesses become reliant on their ads for as a source of lead generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I
would say also, Daniel, that Daniel is not a client of mine at the moment, and Daniel's ads are some of the best written, self-written ads I've ever seen, because they absolutely hammer home his value, which is navigating the stereotypical IT guy and finding a real person. So I think
thank you for that.
If they're working well, that's a testament to your copywriting.
No, and that came about because I got some marketing advice which basically said most IT guys' websites look like this, and it described mine completely accurately. And you're probably spending thousands of dollars on Google AdWords and getting lots of traffic, but no clicks, no conversions. And I was like, man, that's right. Because it was a flashy graphics, slideshow. It looked slick as, it was a pretty website, but it made me nothing. It was just a big money hole that I threw out into it. So I made a few changes to the ads, which aligned the landing page with the copy. So if you Google IT services in Auckland, there's a reasonable chance between certain hours of the day and if you're in the right age categories, because I don't advertise to less than 24-year-olds, right? Because they don't own businesses of sizes that I service, so there's no point. Then it comes up with our ad that says, "Is a one-man band IT guy not answering the phone?" Because I've got a team of guys, and you can get us on the phone really easily, and the responsiveness is one of the key things that our clients value. So it's like, you know, knowing what you do well, and then using that, you know, as part of your unique selling point, and advertising to that, so that when they come into your sales funnel, they're seeing a contiguous series of messages that reinforces that they are in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just hammering home your benefit statement, you know, the reason they're switching in the first place is they're sick of their IT guy not answering the phone. So weave that into your messaging, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's right. If you know what your ideal client looks like, what the whole demographics are, their psychographics are, and what their needs are, and you know what you provide, and you've got a unique selling point, then you can put all of that into your marketing, and you know, as long as you half implement it right, then you're going to get some measure of success, and then you can just start tweaking.
Yeah, I think that's it. You don't need to be off put by not knowing all those details straight away. I think you need to have a really good idea to start, and then it's that optimization process. It's an always on type of thing. And I guess that's another sort of key aspect to digital marketing, where as opposed to some of the other above the line models where you do all your creative several months out, you book all your ad spots, you put your newspaper ad in, you put your TV ad in, and it's done, and you can't stop it. Digital marketing, you can change on the fly. So if something isn't working, you change it up.
That is the fantastic thing. You know if it's working or not really quickly, because you can get a report. Hey, where did this lead come from? Oh, it came from a Google search per click. Great. I know that's working. Cool. I'll keep putting more money into that. You know, but when like when you're doing things like mail or mail marketing or ads out in broadcast world, it's just, unless you set up like specific channels, like a telephone number for them to call or specific email address, it's more difficult to track it.
Yeah, and it's slower. It's slower. But yeah, I do think it's a challenge as well for businesses to get into the psyche of having it as something to do each month. But I think the way that I like to position it is that your marketing spend is an investment, and like all the other types of investment, should be delivering a return for you. And so it is worth your while to spend a little bit of time semi-regularly just to check that what you're spending your money on is actually delivering you value, because it can really rack up if it isn't.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Okay, so we're 36 past the hour. We should, we got questions there in the chat session. Everybody's bombarded with emails and offers right now. Oh, like you mentioned, yeah, I've been hearing from partners that I've never dealt business with, but they've had my email address. When are we over communicating?
Yeah, I think that everybody felt the need to communicate right at the beginning, and we were chatting just earlier as well about lots of helpful tips and hints rather than hips and hints about how to survive the lockdown. So I think if you haven't jumped on that bandwagon yet, probably let it go. There's a lot of content out there, but I think the way to summarize it is, if you can, as you're communicating, if you can clearly articulate to yourself how this communication is going to help someone, then you should probably send it or post it or whatever it is that you're doing. If you can't quite put your finger on it, then maybe you shouldn't. Now, there is something to be said for sharing. Social media platforms are a place for businesses to be social, to share funnies, to have a personality, to comment. But I think there's a balancing act. You need to find a balancing act of your content where it's engaging and thought-provoking and a nuisance, I suppose.
Yeah, I like to try and keep, like, LinkedIn is a different beast from Facebook.
Yes.
And I don't put anything onto, I don't put anything on that I'd put on Facebook on LinkedIn and vice versa. Well, there's a little bit, because what I do like about LinkedIn is it's very much it's a business oriented location, right? So the content I put on it is going to be related to, what is going to be useful for my clients with respect to their business as much as I can, right? And I use it primarily to educate my clientele and potentially future clientele as to, why they might need somebody like myself. But we're getting back to the questions. I digress easily. Okay, so the digital space is busy. How can we cut through amongst all the noise?
Yep. So again, I think that probably comes back to your content and your communication. So I guess with digital advertising, the idea is to connect eyeballs with your products and services. And so finding those people and reaching out to them is one thing, but the way that you do it is through fantastic, engaging content. Now that can be split into two types of categories, and they work together. So one will be your visual content, your visual imagery, your video content, and then there's a whole science behind target audiences and how they consume different visual content. And what a lot of the platforms do now is, if you do decide to develop, when you do develop ads, you will have the option to serve up dynamic ads, so one of a series of ads, which may or may not be more preferable to your target audience than another. This is what we call A/B testing. And so when somebody has specific search criteria, they'll be served up one of a couple, and after a few days of running, we can understand which content, which visual imagery or which video imagery is more compelling and more engaging than the other types. And often it's not the ones that we think are going to be more successful, surprisingly. Yeah. The other way we can cut through is with great copy, which we've kind of already covered, really hammering home the benefit of what you're doing within your copy, so that people know what they're going to achieve as an outcome as opposed to what they're going to buy.
That's right. I found having that mind shift of like, you got to think, what is it that my ideal clients are looking for? What are the questions, or what are the problems that they have in their mind? What are the solutions they're looking for? Like, there's no point me putting an advertisement out there for antivirus. Our clients don't want to buy antivirus. They just want to be secure. So it's a different way of looking at it, and you know, nobody wants to buy IT stuff. They want to have fast internet, right? And how you get them to there is almost irrelevant. So making sure that you're answering those questions in your copy is fantastic. Okay, hey, has anybody got any questions out there you want to type into the chat channel? Now would be a good time to do it before we wrap things up. And I'll just slowly drag this out a little just to give them to chuck that in. Okay. But perhaps whilst we're waiting for anybody to do that, is there any, do you have any, special offers or anything that you guys at Harper Digital are offering right now? Or sorry, I should have asked you to think of that earlier. But
that's okay. Yeah. Luckily, there's some I prepared earlier.
Good.
Yeah. So look, we're in a strange situation. I think anybody who was suspect about the value of being online, having an online presence as a business, now probably has firmly realized that to have an online presence, particularly in situations like this, is really important. On the flip side, there's not a heck of a lot of business confidence or available cash flow for especially engaging new activities at the moment, which is a challenge. So what we are doing, or what I'm doing, is I'm running a free digital strategy session. So I appreciate that sometimes reaching out to an agency or a supplier can feel like you're going to get hit with a bill straight away. But what I want to do is offer people a highly targeted, highly specific digital marketing plan where we do probably a half-hour discovery call about your business, your customers. I go away, do some research, and have a think about how we would go after achieving some of your objectives using digital platforms, and put together some pricing and a plan of how I would go about it. And I send you away with that for free. So it's a free digital strategy session. You can keep that plan in your back pocket. You can come back in a year's time and say, I don't like this anymore, let's change it up. But I just think it helps people really understand what the different platforms are for, how they could use them, and how they can get some value out of augmenting their existing activities to really deliver some leads coming out of this lockdown and into the new normal.
That's right, because it's going to be a staged approach, right? Staged releasing of the gas. It's you might as well have a plan for, well, what if we go from 4 to 3? What can I do? What could I start doing? Okay, and in a limited way, I could start with that, and then as we go from 3 to 2 and 2 to 1, because we don't know quite how long this is going to be. But if you put on a plan like for like worst case scenario, better case scenario, best case scenario, then you can get that out there, because if you know the numbers, if you know what you want, like you said, taking those goals to somebody like yourself, then you can formulate a strategy to give you a bit of sense of confidence for what's going to happen in the future, which is, you know, everybody's looking for certainty, and you just have to kind of create it from thin air. I mean, which is what business confidence is. It's just how people are feeling at any given time. And I bet you if you did a business confidence interview straight after somebody did a great workout session, they would be a lot more confident. It's strange how things work like that.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, there's a book that I was reading. It's called Persuasion, and there's literally there's all sorts of cognitive biases. They're kind of hacks that you can use on people's minds, right? So if you one of them was like, it's going off topic a little bit. People they had a sexually attractive woman go up to a man and say, "Hey, those guys over there," and it pointed to a group of 4 rough-looking young adult men, just stole my phone. Will you help me get it back? Right? So that was the setup. But what they did is they split the sample to 5 minutes before. Those same people, those same guys, the targets of the survey, were asked the question, can you help me find the way to what was the name of the street? Oh, the name of the street was Valentine Road, right? And the other one was Miller Road, completely neutral one.
Right.
It turns out the people who were primed with the idea with Valentine as that word were 4 times more likely to go and help that girl confront the group of guys. It was just one of those kind of, like, you know, so there's got to be all sorts of tricks like that you can chuck into marketing. I'm interested to find out. Maybe that's an advanced topic we can get into some other time. But I think that there's that kind of all sorts of crazy stuff out there, and I think marketing is a really fascinating topic that you can dive right into. So we haven't had any other questions.
Okay.
So we'll wrap that up from there. I'd just like to say that was a really excellent session, Zoe. Thank you for taking the time to be with me here today, and thank you for everybody coming out today. Hopefully there's been some value added to each of your lives, and you've got some ideas that you can carry forward into the business. Zoe, how can people get hold of you if they have questions after this session?
Yeah, sure. So I have a Facebook page, Zoie Burgess Digital Marketing Advisor. Otherwise, you can head to the Harper Digital Facebook page or website, and LinkedIn, and you can send me an email, Zoie with an I, ZOIE @harperdigital.co.nz.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. That's
lovely.
Awesome.
Our next, Bianca, can you jump in and tell us when the next session that we have going on is?
Yes, next session is on Monday the 20th, and we're going to be interviewing Deirdre Watson, barrister and mediator.
Great stuff. She'll be feisty, talking about, she's a commercial lawyer, yes, and she'll be getting into things like the topics of leases and all that kind of stuff, which people are probably finding quite interesting at the moment. I know I am. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, guys. This will be posted up online for people who missed it. Please share it around, and we'll catch you guys next time. You're up.
All right, cheers.